I'm Brendan Gulick. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
There's so much parity in college football. There are going to be, and I'm calling my shot right now, there'll be two teams in the college football playoff with at least one loss. It's going to happen. It's just going to have to happen this year. And I just think the way it's going to play out, there's no way the ACC, a one-loss ACC team's not getting in. I don't know if Wake Forest can make can run the table. You've got a very interesting Oklahoma team that's now playing significantly better with the new quarterback, who actually can run the ball, which I was surprised at the beginning of the year. Rattler, I thought, couldn't run the ball last year. I didn't know why there was all the hype about him. But now we have this going into it, as we buy into this going forward. Like, I don't know how, when you're looking at this, that you just don't look at this Ohio State Buckeye team and say, who doesn't want to watch these guys play right now? Like, who honestly doesn't want to see this offense go play? They're exciting. They're playing, and they're scoring 1 million points. And I really, really am hoping, and I haven't watched enough of Penn State yet, and which I will this week, and we'll break that down at a later time. But I'm really hoping that they can continue this type of success and really kind of push forward and go beat a name brand like Penn State, where that people have a little bit more historical respect for. I think that other teams are giving them.
Jason says basically, who cares if we're ranked high at this point? Keep playing at a high level. Things will take care of themselves. I totally agree with that. But by the same token, it kind of helps me transition to what I wanted to say here about rankings. Rankings are not a forecast. Rankings are a reflection of what has happened, who you've beaten, what your record is, what you've done. Right now, I feel pretty darn confident in saying that I think Ohio State is the number 2 team in the country. I think Ohio State is only, second to Georgia. This current group, this healthy group right now, I think Georgia is the only team in the country that is actually better than Ohio State. But I don't think the Buckeyes are going to be ranked number 2, and I'm not sure they should be. And frankly, I don't care if they are. It doesn't matter, because they're going to make the college football playoff if they keep winning. This almost feels like the best situation possible. Ohio State's players know there is no margin for error. You have to win. If you lose, you're done. You're not getting in the playoff. End of story. I don't care how good your wins have looked. 2-loss team is not getting in. If they win out, they are absolutely getting in the college football playoff because of the way they're playing right now. There's no way they're getting left out. So it's kind of a perfect storm of you're never going to be not focused going into a game, because you literally have everything to lose if you're not focused. And you've got big games on your schedule the rest of the way. And look, this coaching staff does a good job of making sure the guys are ready to rock. They're going to remind them, that Penn State has played Ohio State closer than any other team the last decade. The last time the Buckeyes lost a game in the Big Ten East was Penn State in 2016. You better believe that's going to be brought up this week inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Nebraska's playing better football. I don't think they're playing good, but they are certainly playing better than they have the last 2 years. Purdue, the Buckeyes fell asleep against Purdue a couple years ago, and look what happened. Plus, Purdue just beat Iowa. You better believe that the coaching staff is going to remind everybody that Purdue beat Iowa, and they've got a legitimate NFL wide receiver in David Bell. And then Michigan State and Michigan are going to be easy to get up for, because both those teams have had good years. Michigan State's running the ball as well as anybody in the country, and Kenneth Walker is a legitimate potential Heisman candidate. And the Michigan game takes care of itself. You don't need to manufacture anything for that game. So they're going to have the motivation that they need. But to kind of come full circle, with where we were earlier, I just think that the execution and the talent right now is a huge gap between Ohio State and the rest of the league. There is a lot of parity in the Big Ten. This is a fun league to watch this year if you like college football. It's not that, the Big Ten isn't any good because Ohio State's running away with the league. That has nothing to do with it. There's a reason why Purdue is good enough to go to Iowa, beat Iowa, and then come home and lose to a Wisconsin team whose offense has been atrocious all year. There's a reason why Penn State, who looked so good against Iowa with Sean Clifford and then crumbled when he left the game. How often did you and I talk about this? That why is Sean Clifford playing against Illinois? Penn State, you have no chance to beat the Buckeyes next week if Clifford isn't healthy. Rest him against Illinois. He played and they still lost. That's ridiculous. That's unthinkable. right? I mean, like the Big Ten is fun to watch, but it's fun to watch and fun to root for games unless you're a fan playing against Ohio State, because you got a 95% chance of getting your teeth kicked in. That's just what it is right now.
No, and this is what people projected going into the season. People looked at this Ohio State team, they looked at the rest of the Big Ten, and they said Ohio State's going to dominate the Big Ten again. That's what happened. Like, everyone goes and does this, and like, to look at the dominance that they have had has really gotten after it. And I agree. You know, there are some teams that are better than than some of the teams in the SEC right now. But realistically, I have to say, Ohio State can't be punished for beating up on these teams.
No.
And I think what you watch and you see these guys get off the bus, you see them warm up, you see them do how they prepare for these games. It doesn't matter if they're playing Mickey Mouse Tech or if they're playing, the Green Bay Packers. They approach each game the same way. And these players are accustomed to being hunted. There's two different types of teams in college football, the hunted and the hunters. And when the hunted have a hunter mentality, that's when you start seeing these elite teams go. They walk out of that stadium and they want to not only beat you, they want to demoralize you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. They want to beat you so bad that you are affected by that game when you walk out of there, not just physically, but also watch them go on a losing streak after they play you, because they just can't bounce back. They can't snap after they lose to you as Ohio State. And that's the kind of dominance that Ohio State is executing at right now. And I think as you continue to see this, I know I mentioned it the other day, and when Penn State lost, that program's a different way. They're pretenders. They don't believe that they can beat Ohio State on a regular basis. They say they do, but deep down in their hearts, they don't believe. And that's a big thing. And I know I said it, Brendan, you and I were texting about it back and forth last night, and it was a joke. I said, when Penn State loses to Iowa, they will lose multiple games and will not be a factor in the college football playoff. And thank you, Nittany Lions. Thank you for doing that, for making it come to fruition, because the culture that is cultivated in these places is a "what have you done for me lately" type of culture. Ohio State has the humility to recognize that, hey, we lost to Oregon. We weren't playing great defense against Tulsa. We weren't playing great defense against, going down the road. And guess what they did? They took a step back. They didn't worry about promoting themselves on Twitter. They didn't worry about talking to the media. They didn't worry about doing those types of things. What they did was they got to work. They rolled their sleeves. They got into the Woody, and they said, we're going to work. And we're going to continue to work, and we're going to continue to push, and we're going to continue to drive. And I think right now, that chip on the shoulder thing kind of pushed them through the beginning of this. I don't think they have that anymore. I think that they now are believing that they have that excellence, and they're manifesting it every single Saturday with just utter domination of who they're playing. And I know that's a lot of big words and a lot of different things to articulate this, but what we're watching right now is historical. And when they go on and they do this to Penn State, I think it's going to kind of be a wake-up call to the rest of the country that, hey, this Ohio State team is pretty special. And that's why, we talked about the rankings earlier. It really bothers me that I really think what I'm nervous about is that they get into the college football playoff and they have to play Georgia in the opener. That's my concern. And that's why the rankings thing, and I know we're a long way off from that, but that's my concern with the rankings, kind of where they're at and the way that it goes, that if the college football playoff came out and they were sitting at number 4, your national championship game right now should be Georgia and Ohio State. If Georgia and Ohio State play in that opener, it kind of takes away a little bit from that national championship game, but we'll cross that. We've got a ton of stuff to talk about before then, but that's what's eating at me on my heart with the rankings.
I don't share that concern, because I genuinely believe even if Cincinnati runs the table and they, and with all the other, chaos going on around college football, if Cincinnati does get in the playoff, there is absolutely no way whatsoever that a group of 5 team gets in the playoff and doesn't have to play Georgia. I do not see Cincinnati making the postseason and not saying, okay, group of 5 team, you got your shot. Go play the number 1 team in the country. Regardless of record and resume, there's no way that they're going to rank Cincinnati higher than Ohio State with the way the Buckeyes are playing right now, or an undefeated, potentially, Oklahoma team. Ed has a question here. I think this plays into that. Will a 2-loss Alabama make it? I say no. Is it totally out of the question that it could happen? I guess it's possible. because it's Alabama? I highly, highly doubt it. And I think if you're a Cincinnati fan watching this, the best thing you can hope for is for Georgia to beat Alabama, because if you're an undefeated Cincinnati, you got a really good chance to get in ahead of a 2-loss Alabama. I think that's probably a given.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think it's going to come down to. I think there's twofold there, Ed. And I think one is it comes down to how does Alabama? Let's assume they get to Atlanta. Let's say they play in Atlanta, and for the SEC championship game, how does Alabama play Georgia in that game? If that game goes to overtime, or that's a close, really, really close game, that 2-loss Alabama team could make the playoff if you see a 1-loss Big 12 team win the Big 12, assuming that the ACC is not. I mean, the ACC, the odds of an ACC team going, Wake Forest isn't running the table. And then you have to assume that Ohio State's going to win out. So that now you're sitting there, and that's also assuming Cincinnati wins out. Because obviously Cincinnati's still got to play an SMU team who's undefeated, who's a good football team in that conference. I'm not saying Cincinnati's not going to beat them, but there is another undefeated team in their conference. It's not like they're just going to continue to just roll the ball out and go beat teams. And the Naval Academy, even while they can handle the 1-win Naval Academy yesterday, which is the option's a great equalizer, and that's not really that's not fair to put it that way from that standpoint. But also, when you're looking at it from that standpoint, Coastal Carolina lost. So that's your other group of 5 team that was kind of pushing for this going forward the other night against App State. But what you see going forward is if there's a 1-loss Big 12 team and Alabama plays Georgia down to the wire or to an overtime game in Atlanta, the committee, because of the human element, could potentially put Alabama back into the college football playoff. That's the only way I see Alabama getting in.
Yeah, I agree with that. You just mentioned Cincinnati Navy. The 2 best games yesterday, or maybe 3 best games, I guess. One of them was Penn State, Illinois, simply because of the 9 overtimes. We could talk about that in a second. I thought that was fun, even though it was wacky. Cincinnati Navy was a great game and literally came down to the end, as was Oklahoma, Kansas. And the only thing I want to say about that is if you're going to knock Cincinnati for not blowing out the Naval Academy, you damn well better knock Oklahoma for not blowing out Kansas. Absolutely. I don't care that both of those teams are undefeated. Oklahoma is the most vulnerable, unbeaten team I've ever seen in my life. They literally look like they're going to lose every game they play. And to their credit, they don't, right? The game is about adjustments. You got 60 minutes to figure out how to score more points than the other team. Give them credit. They're undefeated. They have never once this year looked like a dominant team. Never. I think they're much better with Caleb Williams at quarterback than they are with Spencer Rattler, which is kind of alarming. But here we are. It's not even Halloween. And DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson and Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, who were most people's 2 favorite players to win the Heisman Trophy, they have both been benched. It's not even November. So, again, I just don't think that if you're going to hammer Cincinnati for being a group of 5 team and, they barely beat the Naval Academy, you better hold Oklahoma's feet to the fire in that same light if you're going to have that debate.